I'm going to give you 2 tips today that could help you build your Meshtastic network in your local area, which is a common complaint with a lot of people. It comes from austinmesh.org, and I'd like to share it with you. Websites are linked below. How to start a mesh network for your area. The hardest part, and arguably the most fun part of setting up a mesh network, is organizing people. For a mesh network to work well, you need a lot of people working together to set up nodes around town. Finding these people is harder than putting together hardware. Now, think about that for just a second. Where could we find people who love science, technology, engineering, and mathematics? I laugh because working with local schools and even colleges that have STEM programs might actually persuade some of these STEM students to get more involved in Meshtastic, learn about wireless technology. I think it's the concept right there is, I think it's cool. And I think it is a good way to connect with a larger group of people. Have regular meetings. We try to have meetings once a quarter, and sometimes we have 30 or more people, and sometimes it's just 2 or 3 of us meeting at the pub. Keeping regular meetings means that people can feel confident if they miss a meeting, there will be another one soon. And I'm going to piggyback, like my commander used to say, off of that and mention that, well, maybe it's really good to have a dedicated Meshtastic meeting and not a ham club meeting, because a lot of people that aren't hams and they are into Meshtastic might not want to attend a ham club, and that's okay. Maybe down the road they'll get more and more interested in it and they'll go. But right now we're focused on Meshtastic, and I think that it's really important to keep those 2 things separated. It doesn't mean you can't talk about Meshtastic at your ham club meeting, but it is a really good idea to have a Meshtastic meeting that's separate. Number 3 and 4 and 5 are kind of all along the same lines, and I'm just going to go with use some type of internet-based chat room like Discord, Slack, or Telegram in addition to the mesh. And they talk about using social media because, well, maybe there's a good way to get your name out there or to get the mesh out there, as well as email, because some people don't like to use Discord. And what they're saying is online, you're going to want to use as many resources as possible to connect with others. Discord is a really good concept. And the reason I say that Discord is a really good concept is maybe you go to Google and you type in Austin, Texas mesh. Maybe something pops up. Chicago, Illinois mesh. Maybe something pops up. San Francisco, California mesh. And maybe something pops up. Maybe they're Discord servers, which usually they are. And maybe you're not even living close to San Francisco or anywhere else. Still consider joining the mesh, because a lot of good information comes from other people's groups of whatever they're doing with their mesh. And that's how I found these articles. Was I was part of a mesh network that I had nothing to do with. No real reason to be there. I was just there. Number 6, connect with local ham radio clubs. Now, I know what I just said a few moments ago about keeping the meetings separate, and I still do hold true to that, but this is also a good point. It goes on to say they are very knowledgeable about ham radio or radio in general, and they often have access to towers and rooftops. And let me just give you an example of this because it's perfect. I've been doing mesh for 6 whole weeks now, and I also can't count. But one thing I do have is a lot of connections as an amateur radio operator. In fact, I have access to a 284-foot tower, and at 100 feet, I was able to put up a node. So there's a station G2 at 100 feet, and all of a sudden, I've helped the network or the mesh grow out just a little bit in that 6 weeks. But it doesn't stop there, because I use that connection and I have more connections in the area with high building points, or points where their buildings are kind of high in the air. And I'll be fortunate enough to use those connections to start adding nodes on top of those rooftops. And I really do believe that there's probably a lot of people out there who aren't hams who have access to that kind of stuff. It's just that I guess I was fortunate, and I'm also a ham. Well, that makes sense, actually, because there's people in the area, a lot of them, that happen to know if they get a new property, a business, a house, and it has a tower on it, they love to let me know because they know I'll appreciate it, because I'm that ham guy, right? And so that's why ham radio guys tend to seemingly have more access to towers and or rooftops. Point being, though, is there are a lot of hams even at your house who have towers. I know that there's a guy just north of me who has a tower and he put a note up on his. Height is might with 900 megahertz, right? And I haven't considered this one, but it's a really good point too. And it's to connect with your local disaster relief agency like the Red Cross or mutual aid group. They are often willing to put up repeaters on their buildings. Now, that's a great point I never considered. And just a town away, we have a emergency management agency that's on a very high point in the county with a very high tower. Now, is it possible that we might be able to connect with them to put up a node there and further extend the mesh? Absolutely. So yeah, I agree. Connecting with local disaster relief and the Red Cross mutual aid group, your emergency services, probably all good ideas. I want to go back to number 6 for just a moment, and not only connecting with your local ham radio clubs, but connecting with your local GMRS friends or people that you know operate GMRS. And if anybody in those communities get together as clubs, connect with them too, because they also have a lot of cool equipment and access to things like towers. But finally, this is the one that really started to trigger my mindset about how cool Meshtastic is, and that's using drones to grow your Meshtastic network. And I think this is solid advice. Here it says once a week, anywhere and anyone in the area with a drone should coordinate a time to get up to altitude. Use a node on the ground set to client mute to send out a number of messages inviting people to your internet chat room and generally stir up some traffic on the mesh. Why? We found that there is a lot of people out there who have a node and it's just sitting on their desk because they didn't see any nodes when they first turned it on. They may not see your message right then, but they will in the coming weeks or days or weeks. I think that that's an amazing point. And there's a station on the other side of town in such a dense forested, wooded area that he can't get out of his neighborhood to mesh. He's left his unit on for a few days and then a few weeks, and he really hasn't seen anything. But the other night, there was a guy who's kind of just behind him and a little bit higher point who turned on a mesh node. And because that mesh node was turned on, all of a sudden, this guy who never sees anything started to see some kind of activity. But if he just used his mesh once and then turned it off because it didn't work, he would never have seen that message. And the same thing applies to if you leave it on and all of a sudden there's all these drones flying above, transmitting where to find the Discord or the Facebook or whatever for the mesh, everything starts to come together. I thought it was really good information to share from austinmesh.org, but I want to take this one step further. I could tell you that statistically, ham radio operators who typically watch my videos are not watching videos on this Meshtastic series that I've been doing. And that's okay, but what it tells me is maybe there's not as many ham radio operators interested in Meshtastic, and maybe it's finding the appeal to them. After all, it's working with radio frequencies at extremely low power, so it's very thrilling when you actually make a contact that could be a couple of miles away, or maybe even 4 or 5 miles away. And if you continue to try to grow it, maybe even further. It's really rewarding to be able to learn how things work. For example, I was building a battery for my solar node, and maybe I got to see a little bit of smoke and a little bit of flames. But I got to learn, and I thought that that was really interesting. And building a solar node, picking out a solar panel that I know is going to charge those batteries that I finally got working, and it's going to be able to power that system for 3 days, 4 days without an issue in case there's no sun during those 3 or 4 days, therefore maintaining the structural integrity of this mesh network. I don't see why ham radio operators wouldn't be interested in continuing to help grow the mesh network. And I'm going to leave it with this, that eventually down the road, maybe some of these people who aren't licensed, of course we don't need to force them, but maybe some of these people who aren't licensed will have more of a desire to get licensed. So again, I would just say, check out this awesome article from Austin Mesh. Check out other Discord servers, Facebook groups, and more importantly, start to get with some of those local STEM classes and STEM courses in your area to help them learn about mesh and grow the mesh. Thanks for watching the channel and watching me ramble. Hope you have a good one. Hope you're well. Bye.